Welcome to the April 13th, 2023 member of the meeting of the Stockbridge Select Board, which is also a joint meeting with our friends from the Finance Committee. We are going to change the agenda around just a little bit. And in a moment after we say the Pledge of Allegiance, we are going to start with the building inspector and then go to our joint meeting. So all who feel like it, rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All righty. So Matt Colmer, why don't you come up and talk to us? And Michael, you want to, explain what the plan is?
Yes. So
first of all, I'm sorry, 1 second. I just wanted to thank Ned Baldwin for his years of service as our building inspector. He's retiring as of May 1st. And so I think we all owe a hearty thanks to Ned for all the good work he did on behalf of the town.
Of course. Yep. Thanks, Ned.
Yep. As Patrick stated, Ned's retiring and we need to come up with a plan for what we'll be doing next. I've been able to speak to Matt Kohler he's the building inspector in Lee and Lennox. He's also our alternate here for the town of Stockbridge. How long have you been the alternate? I forgot.
4 years.
4 years now. So what I'm asking the board to do at this point is appoint Matt for the next 6 months. We're going to evaluate how it's working during that time period. After like 3 months, we'll evaluate how that's working and then we'll decide what to do going forward as far as the building position. But we think that this is a good position that we're in right now, and Matt comes with tons of experience. Ned recommended him, plus some others that I've spoken to. So I think it's a good addition and a good plan right now to take care of us for the next 6 months. And like I said, we'll evaluate then and then either make it permanent or see what changes need to happen.
And are you going to have office hours here in Stockbridge, or how are we going to manage the time?
I'm trying to work that out.
Yeah. Okay.
Office hours here.
All right. And have you updated all the budgets with the new plan based on what we're doing before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
all right. You guys have any questions?
Nope, I think it's great.
Anybody from the audience online or in person have any comments or questions, or just want to welcome Matt? Anyone from the Finance Committee? No? All right then, Matt, thank you for coming in. We have to have a motion.
All right, what time do you have?
Hold on, we're not done yet. It's 6:32.
Okay, we're gonna, 6:32.
they never made the motion.
I'll make a motion that we hire Matt for the 6 month trial period.
Sorry.
I'll second that. All those in favor? Aye.
Thank
you.
All right.
Look forward to it.
All right.
Okay, thank you. I'm Jay Bykowski, the chair of the Finance Committee of Stockbridge, and we call our portion of this joint session to order at 6:33 a.m. PM, rather, forgive me.
Somewhere there.
Yeah, and basically, I guess we're going to kick it off with Chief Garofoli to talk to us about the fire department. Vinny, you want to come up and join us?
Do we have a chair for Vinny?
Would you rather be at the podium?
Yeah.
Whatever works for you.
I'm in range, right? Okay. All right.
Vinny, why don't you share with us our proposal? We know that there are 3 items. One is the matter of the fire engine, and basically, though the fire engine was approved last year at the town meeting, $750,000 for the engine and an additional $250,000, which we attempted to cover with a grant, which we did not get the grant. So that's one issue. And then you're talking about equipment for the firemen and also a position. So
yeah. So last year during the budget period, we proposed during this exact same meeting last year, the engine, which would be a direct replacement for engine 2 and engine 1 at the same time. That engine company was passed at the annual town meeting. It was contingent upon we had applied for an AFG grant and we were waiting for that determination. We made it all the way to the final round and they ran out of money. So we never got a formal decline notice because they just ran out of money. We were never formally declined. We made it to the end, and unfortunately that end was in December. So it really dragged along. And so we came to this point where we had the specs ready to go. The AFG grant did not come our way, and we're ready to put that forward. They decided as a town, given the current events that have been going on, to reevaluate that purchase. And from my understanding, it's in the select board's hands to make a determination on the actual purchase.
Yeah, and I'll say that, Chief Garofoli gave me the specs at the beginning of February, and that's right when we began the discussion with Lee. So I said, all right, let's just pause a second here and to determine what we're going to do. But ultimately, town meeting has authorized the selectmen to purchase a fire truck. So it is in the fire department's hands. I do think after speaking to Chief, speaking about everything, no matter what happens with any type of regional agreements or anything else, we're 3 to 5 years out or possibly never happening. And I do think it is crucial at this point that we just move ahead with the purchase of that engine. If we were to eventually down the road do something with another community, it would be something that would be used as part of any negotiations or anything else. So at this time, I see no reason why we shouldn't proceed with the purchase of the fire engine.
Just one point, share with us the lead time to get an engine like this.
So the last lead time that I was given was between 700 and 750 days. Before, a few years back, prior to COVID, we were looking at 365 to 500 days. Unfortunately, post-COVID, they don't have the workers they used to have. The supply chains and the electronics coming from overseas are further delayed. So the mechanical end of it, they get done and they're waiting on chips and electronic parts. And Lee ran into that same problem. They were supposed to get an engine in about 550 days, and they're now pushing 700 days, possibly more. So they're waiting for an engine that was supposed to be delivered this winter. So, and from the same company.
Do you want us to vote on this now, or do you want us to vote on
I don't believe we need to vote on anything.
We do.
Select board.
So I'm just asking if you want.
Because basically on May 16th, 2022, that's last.
I understand, per
Yeah,
se. I'm asking if you want us to vote
approved.
now, or if you want us to wait until after your meeting adjourns.
Would have no problem whatsoever.
All right. Do you guys have any discussion on the recommendation on the fire truck?
I have none, being it's 3 to 5 plus years out.
Right.
When
How about anybody?
whatever direction we go in.
And how about anybody from the public? Does anybody on the public want to speak for or against ordering the fire truck right away?
Is there any difference in cost after the wait period?
There's going to be a cost that's going to be covered within that 2 line items for the 750 plus the 250. It's still going to come in under that $1 million mark. We had given ourselves a little leeway because when you apply for an AFG grant, you can't equip a new piece of apparatus. You can only buy the apparatus. So the radios, the lettering, the other stuff is all covered in that extra 250. So that gave us some room to be able to get this engine even if it went later.
Okay.
So we'll still be under that $1 million total mark.
And this will be replacing engine 1 and 2.
Correct.
Okay.
Once it arrives.
Yes.
Any other comments or questions from the public?
Do you have a motion?
All right, not yet. I'm asking for comments. All right, then I would make a motion that we place the order for the fire truck immediately.
I'll second that.
Those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, thank you.
Very good. Next item, we're talking about $65,000 with respect to equipment. Why don't you share with us the needs of what the equipment is and the volunteers who would participate in it?
We unfortunately had to update that because we've got an influx of new members. There's been increased interest in the fire department since everything that's been going on lately, and in the paper, it drew attention in town.
Congratulations.
So we've got 4 new members that have joined in the past couple of months, and we're looking at the potential between 4 and 6 more within the next 2 months. So with that being said, we had to change from 18 sets of gear to 25 sets of gear. It changed the cost from $65,000 to $90,000. And what that does is it buys one set of gear for every member that would be on if we got the members that are prospected to come on. Now, obviously, if we don't have the members, we won't spend that and it will return.
What's the projected total number, please?
25.
25.
25 sets at 90,000 total. The reason we're making this request is the current gear that we have for the membership was purchased back in 2012. That's the date of manufacture. The NFPA suggests replacement every 10 years. The main reasons for this is changes in technology, breakdown of the materials over time. So some of the components of the fire gear start to degenerate over time, especially with more and more exposure to the atmospheres that we put them in, which are consistently extremes. So because of that, the Massachusetts State Fire Academy, under the Department of Fire Services, abides by this NFPA regulation of 10 years old or newer. So if we were to send anybody to anything that involves gear, live fire training, or anything including recruit classes, they need to have gear that is 10 years old or newer. All the gear currently exceeds that. So when we tried to send a recruit to the academy this past winter, we had to order a whole new set of gear for her because the gear we have is non-compliant by the Fire Academy standards. So not only would this give us gear that is in today's standard with today's materials, it would also give us the availability to send any of our members at any given time to anything that involves the use of structural firefighting gear or live fire training at the State Fire Academy.
Any comments or questions in this regard? Anybody?
I do have one question.
Go ahead.
If the gear has to be replaced,
Yes.
what do you do with all of the outdated, outmoded gear?
So we have a couple options. A lot of the gear is fairly new. Unfortunately, it doesn't meet the criteria. In that regards, the NFPA allows us to use it for training purposes that does not involve fire, hazmat, or any of those environments. So we could still use it in-house. One of the other options that we have too is nowadays with the carcinogens we've been exposed to, we have to launder our sets of gear after every use in which we've been exposed to those carcinogens. So in that time period, they have a second set of gear for that period of time, only for that emergent use while their gear is being washed and dried.
Oh, okay.
So we would allow those sets of gear to stay only for emergent use or training purpose. So we're not, if we're cutting up a car, we're not destroying the brand new gear. They can use their older gear.
Okay.
Okay. Jim?
I highly recommend we go with this.
Yeah.
We need firemen with the right gear, period.
Amen.
I mean, that's the bottom line.
I think from a procedural standpoint, probably the select board should make the motion and second the motion, and then we'll at our meeting, when
I
we.
make a motion, we order the fire gear.
I make a second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, another one done.
Okay. The next point, staffing.
So we have a need during the day for members. And part of that need is due to the fact that everybody that we have is working primary jobs and most of them are daytime shifts. So our member availability goes down to 25% or less during the day on any given day. And this is not a unique problem to our town. It's a problem that all the towns around us are facing. But we have the opportunity to add a second person and guarantee that we have a 2-in, 2-out crew to start any type of a fire operation, any type of an extrication on a motor vehicle accident. So the addition of a full-time employee during the day, although it does not totally solve the problem of personnel, it gives us a better standing to make mixed maneuvers on a scene until other departments can gather members as well. And that's the main reason we're looking for a second person during the day.
I think I would make, go ahead, I have a comment.
And in fact, because Mr. Syrian has been working with you on painting and preparing the fire building, the fire station, you actually now have two people who are qualified to run, to run right from the start. So, and he's on until July 1st when this budget goes into place. Do you feel like having him in the building has made the town safer?
I believe so. And I believe so in a couple different instances, because the other one is most of the people that we have available during the day are scattered throughout town. They're not sitting at home. So a lot of times just having those two people to get two pieces of apparatus out the door at the same time allows those members to respond directly to the scene and make a more rapid response. So having that second person allows us to get more equipment out the door immediately for the other members to come and meet us with.
Mike?
If I could.
Yeah.
I'd also like to point out that, another key person during the day was Ned Baldwin.
Correct.
And
Right.
now that he's going to be retired and not here at town hall, that also
Right.
is an impact during the day.
Yes, and that too, we had rapid response because when we were doing joint inspections, we rode together. So we very frequently went on calls as a pair. So
I'd like to throw a point out for your consideration on this position, were it to be approved. I think we should be looking at a contractual relationship, for a period of time, because until we understand the future dynamics of where we are, from the whole fire situation, I don't think we want to commit ourselves indefinitely. So, a year contract or whatever, that's something for you to explore. But that would be the point that I would make.
I've seen in the past with other municipalities with similar standings on like seasonal jobs or temporary positions where they're looking at exploring adding positions where they do an annual appointment. So it's still a full-time position with a set salary per hour, but then you appoint them annually come July 1st. So that way, if something was to happen, you can eliminate that position.
That makes total sense.
And I spoke to legal counsel about what options we have to explore what options we could use as a contracted employee or otherwise. We want to be upfront with anybody that coming in that we are exploring some other things at this time, but we don't know where they're going to go. So we would work to make sure that we protect the town as far as, and be upfront with anybody coming to the town of what's happening right now. So
exactly.
One of the other things that we're looking at with this position too is we realize that every model we're looking at for what fire and EMS services look like for this community moving forward involves the use of dual trained firefighter EMTs. So the position that we would be looking for would be a dual firefighter EMT position with that regard, so that it would be more attractive and lucrative to whatever agreement comes down the road for possible future employment for that employee, as well as providing a needed medical service for the town during the day as well.
And my only other comment is my personal preference is that if we have a Stockbridge resident who is qualified to handle the job, that we hire that person.
I'll take that under advisement.
Any points or comments from folks on the select board, on the finance committee rather?
No?
The only question is, job description. Are we going to be able to be in, fire calls are a lot of them. I think instead of beginning late, if we can use this person for other tasks.
and actually me and Chief met on that.
So we can utilize,
Yes.
cleaning this place, in-town work.
So I came up with
You had a perfect
brainstorm on this. So what it would be is you'd put a line item in there that under operational need, that this person may be able to be used by any other department for non-dedicated tasks. So that way they're not opening a road where they can't leave to do a fire call, but if they needed to help weed whacking or doing something on the side of the road, they could do that.
Okay.
There'd be nothing wrong either with Vinnie and Michael preparing a job description and running it by the
I think we
select
should
board,
utilize this person more than just.
Yeah, no, we definitely.
Job description.
We definitely agreed upon that. There is tasks that we can do around the firehouse, but in those moments where we do have, like usually March, February, where we have a lull, they can assist in other areas.
Even shovel off fire hydrants.
Correct.
Doing.
Take care of the
Cleaning this place.
town hall.
Other things, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Me act as a foreman? I feel here we need one of those. All right, what do you guys think? Do you have any comments?
That's all I needed, that answer.
And so we're going to vote on the operating budget
Yeah.
for the fire. Yeah, I get that. Anybody from the public have any comments on the operating budget for the fire department? Hearing none. I make a motion, we approve the operating budget for the fire
No,
department.
second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Those-
Okay, at this point, as far as the finance committee goes, I would like to call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Oh, whoops.
Are we going to vote approval of those two? You should vote the approval of the operating budget for the fire department and for the capital expenditure, because that's,
Or we could do that next week when we.
You can.
Yeah,
If you want to
we
do
were
it
going to do
tonight.
all of that next
okay,
week.
that's fine.
Yeah,
That's fine.
definitely.
We're going to do it all at once.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's a cleaner way to do it.
All right.
Okay,
I would leave.
so,
I bought you guys some cookies there in Michael's office. I forgot to bring them in. So if anybody wants a cookie on the way out, you know, you can stop by Michael's office with the.
Just getting comfortable.
it's the shortest meeting we've ever had.
Is there a motion?
All right, thank you.
Very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
All righty.
Amazing.
Give it a minute.
Pause for-
Just amazing.
It was just that.
Be out of here in 2 minutes.
Grab the cookie. All right. We're going to continue now with the select board agenda. I wanted to start with any announcements by the board. Amy, you said you had one?
I do have one, if you don't mind. The Tri-Town Connector, which is our new micro transit with Stockbridge, Great Barrington, Egremont, it officially starts May 1st. So it is like an Uber, but it's publicly available. Each ride's about $2.50 to $3. The difference between the BRTA and the micro transit is they're the smaller buses, but it will be on demand and on Sundays. The hours are 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. weekdays, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on the weekends. And we are offering, as a part of to get it running, up and going and test the software, free rides to town meeting, May 15th, I believe. And I will coordinate that with the Council of Aging, and it will be publicly announced. So, yes.
Can we get a ride to Cape Cod with that?
No, not yet anyway.
All right. What is the range?
So right now we're doing Great Barrington, Egremont, and
But
Stockbridge.
if someone has a doctor's appointment in Pittsfield?
Yeah, you still can get it,
okay.
yes. But it's
Great.
limited to those towns until it gets up and running, and then it will widen. And it's, we're using recycling buses, the smaller senior buses from Great Barrington.
Great.
Recycling bus.
Yeah. Anyways, it's very
It
exciting.
might make it to Pittsfield.
Any
It
other
will.
announcements?
You're such a naysayer.
Oh, just recycling.
Any
Gotta be funny.
questions?
No, that's great.
Questions on that? No? And I just want to remind everyone, it's Mercy Weekend this weekend, so the town is going to be packed full of folks. It's the first kind of large-scale one we've had since before COVID. So check your mail on Friday. That's all I'm saying. Other than that, why don't we get started? Pat Kennelly, I see you're here. We're going to start talking about lake management because we already covered the other items on our agenda. Michael, do you want to just talk real quick about kind of the harvesting plan for summer of 2023?
Yep. Yeah, we're prepared. Actually, just today gave you the Garmin that we're required to use.
Yeah.
Our permit.
So we had it last year too, right?
Yeah, we did. And all the reporting was submitted. We do have right now, working on just expanding. Our original harvesting was 7 acres. We're expanding to just under 10 for this season. So we can hit some of those areas that were previously not allowed. So that's moving forward. I know I've spoken to Hugh, the harvester's going to be ready. I know Michael Nathan's on board, plus we have a couple other individuals who have come forward with interest and who will be reaching out to them. We do now make sure that they're on our payroll. We do pay them in order to make sure that we're covered under liability.
Make sure they're capable.
And make sure that they're
Capable.
capable of operating.
Gotta be
Sure.
capable.
Yes.
Can't tip it
Capable.
over. We can't
Yes,
have it.
no, we can't
And they
have
can
any.
swim.
I mean, it's nice to have volunteers, but they really have to be
Yes,
capable.
And do they need to wear a motorcycle helmet or something?
Yeah. So
They go north,
we'll be making
south,
sure
east, and west.
of that. And then I also know that going forward, there's been some discussions of whether or not there can be expanded harvesting in the future.
Yep. We'll talk about that in a second.
And we can bring Pat to discuss.
And the plan is to try to get the boats, the harvester in the water by June 1st.
Yep, if not sooner.
All right, good.
Yep.
So we're getting back to the schedule.
Then you gotta
that-
throw for the weeds.
Yes,
I mean, the weeds aren't up yet.
right. But they might be, we're already gonna be 80 degrees.
Yeah, I think we should bear in mind that.
That is dropping, yeah, but yeah.
Go.
I think we should bear in mind that the 10-foot deep ice cube that is usually on the lake until May never appeared this year. And so the water, I was talking to Ron Broker and he feels the water was as warm in March as it usually is in early June. So we could see things growing quicker. And I think we all should steel ourselves for the, if we get a bad storm, there's probably a better chance this year because the warmer water of a cyanobacteria outbreak, but we're going to hope not. But these are increasing in prevalence around the country. Okay, so the next thing I just want to talk about was the Stockbridge Bowl Association gave us a very interesting proposal, thank you, Pat, related to trying to use 10.53 in the Wetlands, State Wetlands Protection Act, rather than 10.60, I believe, as a way to potentially expand the harvesting permit to maybe 15 to 20 acres. And Pat sent us a request that we endorse this strategy in a non-binding fashion to allow them to kind of make progress and move to sort of the next steps in this process. Pat, do you want to address that? Hi, Pat.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Patrick. And you exactly hit the nail on the head. We believe that by filing under a different section of the Wetlands Protection Act, we could actually be able to harvest more acres than we currently will be able to do right now. And what we are looking for from the select board, as Patrick said, is a non-binding indication that you would be in favor of us pursuing an NOI for a larger harvesting area. And what we would do is we would prepare the NOI, and the Stockbridge Bowl Association would pay for all of that to be done, including legal counsel, and we'd have to do plant surveys and other things like that. And then we would give the NOI to the town, because it would be filed by the town. And then at that point, the town would be free to review it and make any changes they deem appropriate. So basically what I'm looking for is, before we go out and spend the time and money to do this, that I want us all to be on the same page and know that the town is in favor of this and would look favorably on it when we present you with an NOI to go to the DEP to get increased acreage for harvesting.
And I will point out that this could be a dual course thing. So right now we have our current plan that we're updating. That's right. Which actually with NRPZ goes through 2026, and then, but it needs to be renewed by the local conservation after 3 years. We wouldn't lift that one unless it would be contingent on if we were to go to something else, that one would be superseding it. So we wouldn't be in any way jeopardizing any permits.
Absolutely, Michael. We would never jeopardize what we have. We would just hope to increase it, and it would be written in that kind of fashion.
And I would just point out that we have a conservation agent now in town, a gentleman named David Cameron, who was the head of the Western Mass DEP for wetlands enforcement. And I did ask him, my only concern on this was, to just make sure that as we're also pursuing our dredging permit, that there wasn't any issue of having kind of multiple balls in the air. And he reassured me that there wasn't. So I am fully in favor of this. And I want to thank you and Elizabeth and everyone in the SBA for thinking of this and for putting your resources behind it. Does anybody have a problem with that at the board? Do you want to, I make a motion then that we provide non-binding support to the SBA to pursue the enhanced harvesting permit?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. That's excellent.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much.
We appreciate it. Very
you.
Much appreciate it. Thank you.
Great.
Next on the agenda, and you can stay for this, is I just thought we could get a 2 or 3 minute update if there's been any dredging news, since we were already talking about lake stuff. How is all that proceeding?
So we've had meetings with our consultants as far as the dredging. We continue to move forward on it. The main thing is just identifying. Right now, we're waiting to see the identification of whether or not we can use Bullard Woods as the drying spot for the
and who's got to approve that?
It's got to go through DEP, and it depends all on what you're taking out to put what you're putting in. Mm-hmm. You can never have, if soil you're taking out against the soil you're putting in has to meet certain criteria.
Right.
So we just have to make sure that that's all done. GZA is doing that. That's really the next big hurdle. Mm-hmm. After that, we should be able to have some more significant updates once we get past that point.
Can't be done, then we got to truck it away.
Then we have to identify. We have to shift the whole plan.
That would add a lot of expense.
Yeah.
Or we could put a lot of sand on the beach to make sandcastles with. Maybe.
There you go. So really, that's really the next big step in this, and then that will really move where we need to go next. Right. Pat, am I missing anything on that?
No, that's absolutely right. Those are the next steps, the wetlands delineation in Bullard Woods and getting the sediment samples from the lake, and then also doing soil sampling at Bullard Woods. Those are the next big steps.
When do you expect that in?
This spring.
Okay.
Yeah. And we're still on, we're looking at 25 or 26, all best case scenario kind of.
27.
We'll know a lot more after this next.
All right. Yeah. All right. Well, we're okay. Anything else on dredging you wanted to mention, or is that it?
That's it.
All right. And what about an update on the hand pulling of the water chestnuts?
I got to get to work on that. So I will be
Honest.
getting the group that we had last year going out, do the assessment first.
Right.
And then identifying if we need to do poll.
Those need to be pulled before the little seeds mature, right? What is the time frame? I forgot last year. Has to happen by the end of June? What was that?
Well, Patrick, if I may interrupt, yeah, it starts in June. Now, last year they dove in June, July, August, and September and did pull plants in each of those months.
Okay.
But ideally, it would be to start in June.
Good.
And
All right.
Michael, I spoke to Lori Rock of Aquatic Roots last week about something else. And I believe she ought to be sending you a proposal for this soon.
Right. Yeah, I'm anticipating that. Yeah.
And the last thing I just wanted to mention, sort of related to the lake, is Michael and I had the pleasure of attending the Parks and Rec meeting at the beach with Ron Broker on Monday. We have ordered and in fact have in, 2 have been installed, 2 of them are at the beach, 6 more are at Highway, a total of 8 kayak racks, which is awesome. We also have a whole plan of where they're going, and there's some clearing that's going to go down on the south side of the beach to accommodate those. So they'll be a lot closer to the water. And really, the beach plan is coming together pretty nicely. And I see some of the people on the call. I see you, Patty. I know that you were advocating for these a couple of years ago, and in fact, that advocacy was really helpful, I think, for our board in understanding there was an expanded need. So I wanted to thank you. Anybody else have any comments on lake management or anything going on with the lake or beach or anything? No? Nobody out there?
You got somebody?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
You had mentioned that the current NOI is for 7 acres. I thought it was for 10.
It was, because we had zones, we couldn't go in under the treatment areas for herbicide. So we right now we're in the process of getting that updated so we can hit those areas, which will bring it right up to just under 10.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? And just as a reminder, if the public is going to speak, it's helpful if you just identify yourself and the town you live in. I think we have some folks here from outside of Stockbridge. That would be great. Okay.
Patrick.
Yeah. Yes.
Point of order.
Yeah.
Josh Bloom from the town of Lee. I don't know if there's a technical issue, but I myself and other people were trying to get into the Zoom room, and it says it's the select board meeting room, and it says that it's waiting for the host to start the meeting. It's obvious that there are people in the meeting room, so I don't know if we have the wrong link, or if you have multiple links that you have used in the past and you've changed it. Right. But just as a point of order, I just want.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
This is the first meeting that we're running under the new.
That would
Why don't we take a 2-minute adjournment?
They are using an old one, right? Because we recently switched because CTSB TV didn't have enough staff to cover all of our meetings, so we had to automate it. But when we went to do that, we had to assign a new one. It's right on our website. If they go to our website under the agenda.
We didn't have the agenda posted.
Oh, it's right under Selectmen. Actually, I just was in there.
So basically go to boards
Town
and
of Stockbridge and go to agenda.
right, and then it's agendas and minutes.
Yeah.
And then if it's on your phone, you got to scroll down halfway to get to agendas. If it's on a laptop, it's in the right column. We're redesigning the website, everyone. I know it's a little kludgy. And then if you click on the April 13 meeting, there's a Zoom link inside that meeting. And we're working on making it better. I know it's.
Let me give it right now to you if you're sending it. It's the meeting ID is 620-180.
6 what, sorry?
620.
Yeah.
180.
Yeah.
0714. And it's G Stock. So if they go to Zoom.
Any capitals?
Capital G and then stock in lowercase. So if they go to Zoom, they can join a meeting and put in that ID, and that password should bring them in. It is easier to go to the website because there's a hyperlink.
Yeah.
And they can just click the hyperlink and it'll take them right to it.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. The next thing is we have a number of appointments to make. We haven't opened on the Campusa Bog Stewardship Committee, and Sally has offered to fill it. Does anybody have an issue with that, or can we just have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we accept Sally Underwood Miller for the Campusa Bog Stewardship Committee.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then I had a chance to talk to Bill and Chuck, who are our two alternate members on the Concom. And between them, they nominated Chuck to take the full position. So I'd like to nominate Chuck Hoare as the non-associate, whatever, the full member of the Conservation Commission.
And second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Did you have a chance to talk to the person, the opening on Council on Aging? I recalled, but never got
Do you want
through.
to table that to the next?
Yeah, let's table that to the next one. All right. That's
the
good.
next?
And, what? Oh, and then finally, the Stockbridge Cultural Council, we have three new appointments: Joan Burkhardt, Ann Farrell, and John Perkel. Can I have a motion on them?
I'll make a motion, we accept the 3 people to the Stockbridge Cultural Council.
All right.
I'll second.
All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Excellent. Karen, you're up next. Come on up.
To sit at the table?
It's on the table, yeah.
Sit at the table?
Yeah. You can sit on this side, that side, or wherever you want. This is Karen Marshall. She is the chair of the Cemetery Commission, and I think the hardest working volunteer in town. Karen has led an effort over the past year or so to take a look at the cemetery bylaws, to update them, to also figure out what should probably not be in a bylaw, but rather be promulgated regulations. And with that introduction, I will let you kind of walk us through what the recommendations are for the warrant.
Did all of you get a copy of the?
Yes, we all have a packet.
So I say what the proposed change is and the rationale. So do you want me to walk everyone?
I think just the highlight the key side. People can read the bylaw, but just what are the major changes, just in case anyone has any questions.
Right. Well, we are at this point, we are 9 members. I think we are the largest commission in the town. And so we would like to go back, we would like to cut down to 5 members. We also wanted to add that we're going to have 3-year terms. And the commission shall have charge, care, and management of the town cemeteries and shall make all policies for that management remains unchanged. So we need to have a smaller group.
You want to go to 5. Do you have 7 now?
We have 9.
9.
However,
5.
3 of the 6 are town employees, and 3 of them are not, and 3 are the select board.
Yeah.
So.
Kick off the select board.
Well, we'll be the appointing body. You can appoint yourself. So, or can you? I don't recall. Yeah.
So you're going from 9 to
5. And we have 3 solid people. And what we're suggesting is that that one member be a select board member or a representative determined by you. And then the other one is Laurel Hill Association is entitled to elect you would approve that, but they would send a representative. So there are 3 of us who are civilians, non-town employees or non-select board.
And if I know we talked about this, the employees like Hugh that's on it, Terry that's on it as the top, if they need to come to a meeting, they'll come to the meeting.
Yeah.
So it's not, but they don't necessarily have to be on the board in order to carry out the mission.
Yeah, we have trouble getting a quorum sometimes. We do.
So we're down to 5, which is great. And then do you want to this is much shorter than the current bylaw. So the idea is some of the things that are in the current bylaw would be in fact transferred into regulations that the commission would develop that would need to go before town meeting.
So the next one is 1.2, and that describes who is entitled to be buried in the cemetery. You can take a look at that. Residents and taxpayers entitled to be buried. I just want to remind everyone that we do not sell plots. We have not sold a plot at least from the 1940s. We give plots away. Only 2. Don't get greedy. But
we need 2 plots.
2 plots, yes. 2 for a family.
Oh, they meant per individual.
No. Just
that's a different story.
So it's a town benefit. And so we wanted to define a little bit. We wanted to include people who, for example, have lived in town for a long, long time, but had to move to Kimball Farms or had to move to a niece's house and somewhere else. Those people are also still included. We're also saying that non-residents whose family members already have a burial plot. This actually question has come up. Woman in Colorado, grew up here. Her parents are buried here. She hasn't lived here in 30 years, but she wants to be cremated, and there is room in the plot. So we put that into the bylaw because we were doing it anyway. So we were saying that kind of thing. And then we will review any other non-resident requests and decide those on a case-by-case basis. All right, so that's number 2. All right. Number 3, 1.3 doesn't change. 1.4, we're suggesting eliminate completely. Let's see what 1.4 is. I've got everything memorized. Oh, notwithstanding any other provision of this article, any right to be interred in a burial plot shall be governed by the provisions of this article in effect at the time the right was given and by any conditions imposed thereon by the Cemetery Commission. So nobody seems to really know what that means. So I ran it by the town council, and she said, well, you have to adhere to the rights that were in place when you were buried. But since we've been giving plots away since 1940, I didn't think we were really going to run into any kind of issue on that. So she agreed that we could eliminate that completely. So that's gone. Number 1.5 stays the same.
I don't think we need to go through all of them.
Okay, good. All right. All right. So anything.
The last one is, the 3.1. Did we cover that? 3.1, the back page?
3.1 isn't changed.
Okay.
The only other change that I just want to point out to everybody is that we are getting rid of 2.2, which used to be permanent vaults, not liners, shall be used in all casket interments. We're taking that out completely, dropping it. So it means if you want to have a liner for your casket, you can. But if you don't want to have one, if you don't want to have a vault, surrounding a vault is it's a coffin within a coffin, basically. And a liner is something that's on 3 sides. We're saying you don't have to have any of those, which allows for natural burials. So if you want them, you can have them, but you don't have to.
Right.
All right, any questions?
No, but I do want to thank Karen and Pat Flynn and Candace Curry, of course, and especially Peter Williams, who is not a member of the commission, but has shown up diligently to sort of be the lawyer in the room to help us through all these issues. Really, I've had a chance to sit on most of the meetings, and you guys did such a fantastic job. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I make a motion that we refer this bylaw to the warrant.
Oh, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good work. All right. Okay, we did that. All right, let's see. So are we ready to adjourn? No, wait, I'm sorry. No, I'm kidding.
I am.
So I would like to make a motion. The inclusionary development bylaw has not, is Donna on the call yet?
Who?
I think she was coming in. You had her at 8.
Yeah, can you maybe text her or call her and just,
I don't know. I'll see if I can reach her.
because she's just going to walk her dog. This is our town council. And if not, then what I'll do, if she's going to be a little late, I will open it up to the public comment early.
It's not the budget warrant.
What?
Got the budget warrant.
Right.
Yeah, but whether these go on the warrant is, I mean, we have to decide what's going on the warrant first.
Right, but you can do that at the end. We can still review everything else as far as your.
Okay. Do you want to do that first?
Yeah, we'll get the warrant done first.
Yeah.
All right, then. We're going to go to the last page of the packet.
ADU.
Well, we're going to do both of those. I want Donna here for. Now I got to find it. Let's see. Is it? Yeah.
So you guys should each have copies of the warrant and for town meeting.
Yeah, where is it, Michael?
It's in the bottom, it's in there.
So one of the questions
The big thing that says draft.
is that do we want to consider again lumping articles together?
Yes.
In the,
Sometimes.
Yes.
so.
Explain what that is to the public.
So I know in the past you had some articles such as CPC that was one article, then with ones that were, in this case this year, and here, let me hand this out to each of you.
Can you put the warrant up on the screen?
Patrick.
Yep, I will. So this would be how the warrant would look this year. We have 17 CPC articles. So let me throw this part up there right now so everybody can see. Sorry. 1 second.
So we would read each one, and anybody had a question, they can put a hold on.
Yes.
Each line.
So that's.
Still gotta read it all, though, right?
Right.
Tonight?
Let me throw it up there. So this is what was done before. We went.
Michael, scale it a little.
Oh, sorry. Upscale that a little bit. There. So this is how articles, we went away from this and went to voting each one.
Yeah.
And before we used to just do a single vote for all of them with no holds. This would actually be where the article would be read. There would be, as you can see, there are 17 different articles under the CPC.
Right.
So what we do is we just read the first part, which would be the top part. There'd be a motion to accept all of these. If somebody at town meeting wants any one of these held, then they just go, I'd like to hold number 2. All it takes is one person to hold an article.
Right.
If there's no holds, we just make one vote and approve all of them. If we hold, say 2 and 4, then we vote to approve all but 2 and 4, and then we go to discussion of 2 and 4, and then you vote 2 and 4. So what this does allow is if there really are some there's no question, it will allow a little bit of a speedier, but it still allows every article to be brought forward if somebody feels like each article needs to come forward. You can do this not only with CPC, but you can do it with free cash, and you can do it with your water and the sewer reserve ones. So we could basically take about 22 articles and get them down to 4.
What do you call this process? Combine warrant articles?
Yeah.
I make a motion, we combine all the warrant articles we can.
I would recommend.
Within reason.
I would recommend doing the water and sewer.
Yeah.
What's the free cash ones?
So the free cash ones, let me stop the sharing of this one. And
Free cash.
go over to the regular warrant.
The 600 for the roads, the 25,000 for Rusty River. What's the other one, Michael? I think it's 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah, let me. Let me blow this up a little bit once again. There we go. All right, so the highlighted ones are all the CPC ones, but going up to the.
Maybe is it on the spreadsheet too?
Yes, they're all on the spreadsheet, sorry. Let me get to, so we have,
But we have less than last year.
yes. Well, this, like I said.
Like 3 or 4 of them,
A
but.
couple.
Okay,
items.
I will go with that. I just want to make sure it wasn't enough that people want to comment on,
Yeah.
you know.
And people can put holds on any of them.
Yep.
So,
Any of them,
Yeah,
right.
that's right.
Any ones.
There's only 4 articles. I would agree to do that too.
Right.
all right.
Now, I will note, I had a placeholder for 600,000 to do the roads. So we got an estimate to do almost all the roads in towns. We've reviewed it with Hugh, and it's over 2 million to do all the roads. We have 854,000 in chapter 90. We're hoping to go after some additional money that the state has announced for rural roads. And then what we're going to propose is we take 1.2 million of free cash to do the roads.
All right, so it's 854 plus, so it's a $50,000 kind of cushion, and then we wouldn't spend it if we got a grant.
Right.
Great. So is that updated in the warrant?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And it's all coming out of free cash.
It's all coming out of free cash. So there'd be a
Which we
number
have
of
to-
articles
we
coming
have
out
to
of free
get that
cash.
too.
And if any of those you want to hold, somebody would just ask for a hold. We'd hold that article and then debate and vote on it.
And do you have a list of the roads that are in this $2 million thing?
Yes.
Can you go through them?
Hugh
Here's here.
was supposed to,
Come on up. You got to come up.
you did forget to send me that list. Yes, I know, you've been crazy lately.
I had another question.
Why?
You can exit that. Michael, you can exit the.
With Mike, and Mike asked me to email it to him, and lack of opinions.
Some of the highlights.
I just haven't. Some
Hawthorne Road.
183, the north 183, the whole thing from 102 up to Tanglewood, to town line. Looking at Prospect Hill, we're looking at Brookside, we're looking at Stone Hill, 183 south down to the intersection where the saw cut is. Looking at Bean Hill, we're looking at
Rattlesnake.
Devon, rattlesnake, the lower end.
Paving rattlesnake.
There. So pretty much anything that'll kind of catapult us a 10-year cushion to, focus on other infrastructure, I guess would be the proper way to say it.
Now, how many of these involve pulling up the roadbed? Do we know yet?
Well, none of them yet. There's a few of them that are in danger of FDR, full depth. So if we can get them coated, we'll save that expense.
Yeah.
There's some down in the Furnace District that are real close to being FDR. So this, and not only this to get us a better road surface, it's going to help us cut our snow and ice because we can mechanically remove snow with a cleaner surface and use less chemicals, so.
I'm going to ask a really stupid question, and I fully admit that this is not my area, but I want to ask it anyway. We're seeing worse storms. We're seeing, more power outages. Is doing any of these projects, even if we were to budget more or go do them a little smaller, give us an opportunity to bury any of the physical infrastructure like cable lines, power lines?
You're really getting into massive money, and that's up to the power companies and the cable companies and stuff. You're talking millions and millions and millions.
Is that our take? It's not realistic.
It's very unrealistic.
And there's no roads or streets on this or specific areas where there's a strategic benefit of trying to do that while we're tearing them up. I'm not asking the
You're not digging down unless you're doing full depth reclamation where you're taking up the entire road, which costs would shoot through the roof. Right now, this is mainly a milling and. Filling.
No, it's not a stupid question.
No, it's a good question. I know we'll be replacing structures, we'll be fixing up catch basins, we'll be doing all that as we go along in this process. And I know that we have been working through the MVP with the culvert assessment program. I know just recently you got the updated information on that. There's a couple of those we've identified that those will be down the road, some further projects.
So my only other question related to this then, is there any planned water or sewer activity along these roads? Because I remember, I think it was Church Street several years back where they paved it and then they had to pull it up because they had to do water and sewer work. And I just want to make sure that the work underneath the roads gets done first.
Are you talking about Train Hill?
Yeah, we'll be doing two things, and then one is we'll make, you can speak on water and sewer, but I know as far as underground utilities, like gas lines and other stuff, what we will do is inform Berkshire Gas that they need to address any of those roads because we won't be allowing them to open up those loads for at least 5 years. Now, obviously, that does not include emergencies. Right. They're always allowed to open the road if there's an emergency, but we're not going to allow non-emergency repairs.
Every town does that.
Yeah, pretty much. It's pretty standard.
Every town does that.
You just say, hey, and here's the list of all the roads. We'll send them a list. We'll send them a list and say, if there's anything you're planning on doing, do it now because we're about to redo these roads. As far as water and sewer,
just to recap what you just said, the gas company actually every year sends us a letter requesting information on any roads that we might be looking at so they can kind of stay one step ahead. So we fill that out, send it back. As far as water and sewer, work real close with them. One thing that Mike Canales has brought on since he's been here is monthly DPW meetings. So we actually talk about projects and we talk about them things just to stay more united and work together and try to plan that out as best as we can. Some projects are just the scope, the money is just.
Now around, you said 183, around the average, what's the time frame for completing the project if it gets approved for July 1st?
Sorry.
So it would be a fall project.
All of them?
All of them, because we will go out to bid right after town meeting, start getting everything lined up.
And we may end up with a better price, but that's about.
And how will work on the Second Averitt Bridge, if at all, and or the work on the Curtisville Bridge impact the paving of the adjacent? It won't.
No, any tie-ins to those and
Just fixed as
when that project happens.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Does anybody from the public have a comment on the roads and the roads plan?
One thing, I know you said all the roads, it's not really all.
A lot.
We're focusing on a lot of key areas, so doing the best we can with the money that we have, and just the time frame, we are shooting for that end of Tanglewood, right before the Josh, that kind of sweet area, you know, so we're trying to get a lot of it done there.
I think, if, you know, with this amount, you're gonna get some.
Yeah, we're just
bids,
hoping
I
everybody's
believe.
patient, you know, it's gonna be a,
It's not a little job.
no, we're hoping everybody's
I
patient.
think the more you do, the better price you get.
And we'll be tying into the crosswalk job that went out to bid and we didn't get any bidders on that smaller job. We're gonna be tying that smaller job into this larger job. Yep. In that.
Yeah, but I do apologize for not getting that.
We're fine.
We had a nice.
I know you've been.
Right.
Just have it for the town meeting, because they're gonna ask.
All right. We have a question?
So is there any?
Name, sorry.
I'm sorry, Jack Conquest, I live over on Park Street.
Okay.
Is there anything that is part of that budget that addresses safety on the roads? And many people know me, I make plenty of phone calls about speed on Park Street. We got people doing 60 miles an hour. It's called Park Street because it's a park. NTSB shows that anything, 98% of vehicle to pedestrian accidents are fatal. So you combine those two things where you have a lot of people on a street like Park Street going very fast. Do we have any thoughts in place to place monies for things like speed tables to slow people down, et cetera?
Actually, we've increased to 2 speed bumps, 2 different sections on that road. They'll be going up shortly. We're just trying to make sure we get, you know, out of that April 15th area orders.
I've seen this, I mean, we're right there near the speed, well, and believe me, I'm thankful for it.
Yeah.
But even more, like a speed table. I've seen them all around the state. They're generally about a 4-foot wide elevated area of road. NTSB and state guidelines outline how to.
What is this called? A speed?
It's called a speed table. So typically you'll find them around 6 feet wide. There's oftentimes chevrons ahead of them to note that indeed you're going to experience an elevated.
So it's almost like the elevated sidewalks. That
It's
same
almost like
purpose.
an elevated sidewalk.
Okay.
There are plenty of areas in town where people know that once you pull up those speed bumps, my wife and I sit in front of the window and go, yep, there goes another one. Yep, there. I mean, I've gotten to the point where I can time them because I've been so frustrated. And I watch the elevated speed. It's changed. And the same thing happens in the middle of town. So at one point do we go, wait a minute, somebody's gonna, one life lost.
No, but so what are you recommending? The speed tables instead of the speed bumps?
That would be phenomenal.
And what do you think of that?
Because that allows it to stay year round.
Yeah, we can look at those. I'm aware of those, but I've never done one, so I'm not sure.
All right, hold on.
Like the ones in London?
Can we just have Michael talk, then we'll.
No, I'm gonna say, I'm aware of the concept of them. I've never installed them in any of the communities, so I'm not aware of what it takes. I don't know, Hugh, if you have any experience.
And the 183 paving is starting where on the south side?
It's starting right down, Mohawk Lake Road there, where that is.
So then you're including Glendale?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so we have had similar issues in other neighborhoods, and I think that it's a great idea for us to evaluate this technology and this strategy as part of this project. And I would strongly urge us to,
you know. Gotta look at for certain roads, certain speeds, you can't have them.
Right, I mean, I think it's.
Speed is 55, you can't have them at 55.
No, but if there's a village, if it's basically.
Park Street, it's fine, I'm 100% behind you.
How about Glendale, where it's the middle of a village, and we got, I mean, I don't know if it's.
No, it depends on the speed of the roads, because even elevated like crosswalks and other stuff, once you're over a certain speed, you can't create basically things that'll launch a car. So road speed is 45 miles an hour or 50 miles an hour. You
Can't be like Hot Wheels or something.
No, but on an area like Park Street where the speed limit is a reduced speed.
We'll look into that.
I just think we need to look at it. You know, for example,
Aware of is also that if you decide to do speed studies, the 80% rule is sometimes damaging to the outcome that you would like to have.
Right.
And for those who don't know what the 80% rule is, they do a study where 80% of the cars on the road They study their speed, they go, well, 80% of what people do, that's the speed limit that it becomes.
Hold on one second.
That's
Can,
terrible.
hey, everyone, just one second. Can everybody on Zoom hear the conversation?
That's dangerous to do that.
Right, so be cautious.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I've mentioned that before to people who have gone, why aren't we doing the speed study about this or this? And I go, the speed study could actually raise the speed of a road.
And it will out here because the average speed out here is above.
The only other point I'll make is that, you did mention Hawthorne Road, which is in front of the Lions Gate. That might also be a spot to look at if it is legal. I don't know if it's legal or not. We've got I think that neighborhood where you've got a lot of folks who live at White Pines and who live on Emerson and Wheatley Drive, and there's no sidewalk, very little shoulder. At the end of concerts, it is people drinking and bringing their own bottles in. I am just telling you, like anything we can do to slow traffic in that neighborhood. And I know maybe it takes people 5 minutes more to get out of a concert, but I'm just worried that it's very dark. And so anyways, I think that just evaluating these opportunities to improve safety wherever we can as part of this project, if we're going to spend $2 million, let's spend it wisely. So
I will say that, our dirt roads are done. They're coming the middle of next.
Rattlesnake is beautiful.
Yeah, and they're coming.
Having over there every night going home, and it's just, it hasn't been so, I haven't seen it that good.
Yeah, we're getting there.
I mean, it's just amazing.
And middle of next week, we're scheduled to do our line painting, should be done. Working with Mike, we've gotten the money to replace a lot of signs throughout town. So we are trying, and perhaps that would be a good.
I was just gonna say.
Park Street might be a good.
Whether or not we look at because we have that RAP money we need to use.
That might be a good
We're gonna be able to
test.
look at one of those light up speed signs that tell people they're going.
Park Street may be a good test for that bump.
Exactly.
Just do that one, see how it works before we put them everything all the time.
Can you send it to the select board too?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So do you need a motion on any of this? Or is it on the warrant? We'll just deal with it.
It's on the warrant, right, and.
How much money total do I have for paving?
All right.
We'd have 854,000 from chapter 90. We'd have 1.2 million in available funds from free cash. And then we're going to go after additional funding and we're going to try to do as much as we can.
Never had that much money for paving.
Can we use any of our ARPA funds?
Well, that would.
Potentially we could.
Because don't they expire?
No, we don't.
That would.
But we have
That's
plenty
just an idea.
No, it is.
No, I was going to say that. I was going to make a different point, which is last year when we did the bridges and the equipment for highway, we did a $4 million bond. And the reason for that was that, there was widespread acknowledgement that interest rates were likely to go up. And so we preserved our cash in the last few years, looking at all the money the federal government was spending that was going to put some inflationary pressures in place. And now that has happened, that interest rates have roughly doubled, it's a really good time to use free cash for these purposes. But there's no difference in using ARPA. I'm not.
Right, but I don't want it to expire. We didn't.
Oh, we're going to use it.
And it's for the people. It's for everyone.
Right. And
they won that expire.
And plus we're going to auction off those old fire trucks. That could be another couple.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So anyways, anything else on?
No, I just want to say that, we get a lot of requests for signs and signage and we're doing the best we can. To order something and, we can't just go to Walmart or Target and get something. It takes a long time and stuff right now, unfortunately. So we're doing.
What is that? A couple months?
It depends on what it is and who it's from, to be honest with you. I'm still waiting on stuff that we ordered a while ago, so like case in point.
Whatever it takes is fine. I'm just.
Yeah.
I can ask the question. It'd be helpful just to know.
I know people think it's just, I got,
But is it 6 months? Whatever it is, I just want to let you know.
Yeah, it takes a little time, to get things, especially like if you're trying to change things a little bit, trying to neaten things up, fonts and style.
You heard about the Mohawk Road sign and the end of Glendale Middle Road.
Yeah, and the Maple
and the
sign
Maple,
and Elm
right.
Street sign. And those
All right. So it's just the public knows because I was asked this question this week. We are on those. And the other thing, Michael, you said you could order the radar signs that have been requested for Glendale, that we have that in the budget somewhere. All right, good. All right, excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks, you.
All right, so just going back to the warrant, does anybody have any problem with combining the, the items into, combine them and then use the hold strategy if anybody wants to talk about anything?
I'll make a motion, we do that.
All right, second.
We have to vote.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We skipped the second part and went right on to the next thing. All right, now, we're not done with the warrant though yet. I would like to make a point on the warrant. One of the things that is slightly annoying to some townspeople is sometimes the things that with the biggest numbers or that might have the most robust debate often seems like it ends up at the end of the warrant. I would like to change that strategy this year and put anything that folks feel, that I feel or you feel is going to be the subject of debate. I would like to get that other way earlier.
We only
Now
got
that we're doing them in 4 clumps,
4 clumps, gonna be quick.
how would you like the clumps done? Do you want to do free, I would probably recommend free cash, water, sewer, CPC.
Yes.
All right. I think that we're going to have the debate around bylaws. I think we're going to have debate around.
No, I'm just talking about the order of those 4.
Yeah.
And then you can tell me where the rest you want to put them.
Oh, yeah.
I would do those 4 first.
Yeah.
Do the moderator, whatever you do, the school, do those 4.
Yeah, we have to do, so just to let you know, the first ones are set in stone.
Yeah.
You got, so
1, 2,
Article
3.
1, annual town meeting, 2, 3, the annual budget, Article 4, the school budgets, Article
6, 7.
5, 6, and 7 are all set in stone.
And then I think from there we go with the next 4.
So we have one outlier, that's the stabilization to pay off this building. That's gonna be a 2/3 vote. Do you want, Patrick, since you like the largest one, that's
Do
gonna
that
be
one next.
1.1 million?
Do that number
Over
8.
here.
You want that
Number
one
8?
first?
Do that 8.
Or are you?
I'm basically saying that I think
Bylaws first.
I think that the things that are going to be discussed and debated, sometimes people have to go to work or we often see attrition at the town meeting. And you go through everything we're talking about so far. My sense, this being my 4th, is that these aren't going to be very, very much debate around them, but they still take time procedurally to go through. And I think we should just move the stuff from the end that is basically the 4 bylaws and the question on the citizen petition to the beginning and let people kind of contribute while the room is full.
You have 8 already there. Isn't that, and that's water treatment.
So Patrick has a proposal to put the bylaws and the citizens petition first, then do stabilization, free cash, water, sewer, CPC.
Yeah. What he said.
I'm not sure about the citizen petition being up front.
Yeah.
I'd like to put that at the end.
I think we should tire them out. No,
I
I'm kidding.
know you're kidding, but literally people feel like that's always our strategy is that we're going to load the room with our allies and we're going to make sure that the only ones to stay late. And it's like we live in a time of kind of these conspiracy theories. And I think that the ones that are the most important to people should be dealt with first. And I don't care if you win them or you lose them, but this is town meeting. It's up to the voters. It's up to the folks to decide what the issues are. Shelby, you got a comment?
Yeah, I just, Shelby Marshall. The fact that a petition got enough signatures to get on the warrant doesn't mean that a lot of people care about it, and it's a major issue.
Yeah.
It means that a few people care about it, and it's a major issue for them. So I don't want to disrespect the petition, but in terms of its priority relative to town business, I kind of feel like we should make sure we take care of the town business first.
I would do that last. I would do your proposal. I would do Article 8 should be what you said. The 1.7 million for the debt thing.
That's not the only one that's at the end now. There's also 4 bylaws. So do we approve the 4 bylaws that have been referred, if they are referred by this body to the beginning, and then leave just the citizens petition for the end? Or is your position that you want to do all of them at the end? Because I can guarantee you, just looking at, can you exit this?
We're doing the holds too, which could theoretically
It won't.
shorten the meeting if there aren't a lot of holds.
That's if there should be any holes in that. I would believe never has been.
There you go, Patrick.
Yeah. I mean, look, I can see.
So do you agree to put so everything's up to 7 is set in stone. Article 8 should be the paying off the debt thing, because that's a big expenditure.
That has to go.
All right.
Right.
And then we gotta decide if you wanna put,
Are we putting the bylaws after 8?
Yeah, that's what I would like to do.
How many? There's 4?
There's 4 of them.
I got
They'll go
those.
relatively quick, but I know people are gonna have opinions on them and I want to hear their opinions. Let them weigh in.
I would go with that.
Bylaws, yeah, we
All right.
could move
So
those
the
up.
bylaws would be 9, 10, 11, and 12.
Yeah.
But citizens petition should
Last.
stay last.
Yeah, okay. I understand the argument on that and I think that Shelby's right.
And then do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They may be
Whatever order
passionate,
you,
but
whatever
small.
order you
One at a
put,
time. Come on, one at a time. Between the two, I can't hear you.
Yeah, so we got 8 is the paying off the debt.
Yeah. Then the
Then we go to
bylaws,
bylaws, and then we go to,
schools or whatever.
no, schools before that.
Yeah, that one has
Then we go to either
free cash, water, sewer,
free cash, US water,
CPC,
CPC.
citizens petition.
Perfect.
It's gonna look short and depending on the holds, it could be.
Okay.
Or
I think it would be
Can you live
short.
with that? I'm good with it.
I'm perfect
All
with
right,
that.
so that's the warrant.
Yep.
Excellent.
I'll make a motion.
Now, wait, we're not done though,
Oh,
because
we
we
got to
skipped,
the developer.
we
Yeah.
skipped 3 things at the beginning that we
can't
talked
approve
about.
the warrant yet because you have to decide what to do.
Oh,
on
we
those
have to do
bylaws.
Yeah, right. So before we move to the bylaws, we have just a quick thing.
Is she here?
What?
Yep, Donna is here.
Oh, good. Hi, Donna. How's the dog walk? All right. So let's go back to the agenda if I can find it. Here it is. There were several things on the select board side of the finance meeting that we just need to talk about. Real quick things. My position, and I'm speaking for you, Michael, I believe you agree, is that we want to do a test this year with the short-term rental tracking tools. I think if we're going to potentially revisit anything related to short-term rentals, we should have as good a data as we can. And just simply the fact that some people are non-compliant in terms of paying their taxes, I think this tool pays for itself a number of times over. I know you expressed some concerns on that. Do you have an issue?
I do have some concerns, 20,000, but if it's gonna pay back, I would do a 1-year trial.
All right.
I would agree to a
So
1-year.
can we have a motion on that? Or Jamie, do you have any comment on that? Are you good with it? No. All right, so make a motion. We add Granicus and pay for it with free cash.
Short-term rental software.
1
We're not
year.
saying it's 1 year.
What? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, short-term
1 year.
rental.
1-year trial.
1 year.
Or the budget comes up every year. It doesn't, it's not in the budget. It's a warrant item.
Okay, so.
It's a warrant item, so
No matter what.
that it's not embedded in the budget. Right.
And
Okay.
if it works, we can put it in the budget. but if it
Now,
doesn't-
my second question is, do you feel like we have enough money to, for whatever the next step is on Curtisville, Butler, and potentially Park Street in terms of engineering, whatever? Is there enough money?
So I have engineering funds so we have engineering funds for Elm and Maple as far as through water and sewer lines, looking at that.
And
I've got money in the bridge account to cover the engineering on the Curtisville, and we got the grant on the Averitt Road one, so that's happening anyways. And then I have $50,000 in engineering to do the studies on the next one. So I do feel like right now, between all those funding sources, I have enough to do every one of them.
Okay, and what about potentially engineering the sidewalk around Pine Woods?
Yeah, we would be able to do that because we already have a preliminary design.
I thought we were gonna hold on to if I was.
Right, but as far as if during the year we get some.
We still need to understand the cost of it, which is why we need the engineer.
So to be honest, the Complete Streets had already done a preliminary, as long as you're talking about doing it as sidewalk along the road, we have the money to do it. If you're getting into doing something through the wetlands, that's
So what does that entail? Because we get asked about it at every town meeting, and I just want to just walk through what is the money that we have and how far does that get us? Through engineering?
It would get us to update the engineering.
Okay.
I'm doing it.
And so you feel you've got more than enough money for engineering in the budget to cover everything you need to do? All right, that's good. Can you pull up the OPEB just for a minute? I just want to walk people through. Michael and I had a meeting on this, and I wanted to walk you guys through our thinking. I want to start with the spreadsheet that had all the where we were in terms of funding. Well, I know,
Yeah.
I know what it is. While he's looking for it, I'll explain it.
Sorry.
So we were 100% funded on OPEB last year or 2 years ago. And then the market didn't do so great. So now we kind of dropped down to about 91% funded. All right. This is going to happen. It's going to go up and it's going to go down. OPEB stands for other post-employment benefits. So, when someone like retires from the highway department or police department or wherever, we cover some portion of their health and dental, and that adds up over time to costing, a whole bunch of money. Now, most towns, and for example, the Berkshire Hills Regional School District, don't fund it at all. They just fund it out of the general budget every year. But because it goes up a little bit every year, it's kind of a ballooning liability. This town did a great job over the last 10 or 12 years of basically fully funding OPEB. Because we did that, the question is, when should we access it? And so I worked on a proposal and I've gone over with Michael, which is really straightforward, which is when it's 100% funded, and that might take 3 or 4 years from now, or it might be next year, we would both keep it fully funded by using either reserves or free cash, while at the same time drawing what the general budget liability would be for OPEB for that year. So in other words, on some years, you might have to put in $200,000 to keep it fully funded, whereas the annual liability for OPEB is $139,000. So some years you might actually have to fund more and pull out less. And other years you might be able to fund less and pull out that 139, the general liability. So because we're not this year at 100%, there's no action we're going to take here, but we're trying to think through, now that we've done such a good job over the last 10 or 15 years with this, of how we actually take your taxpayer money and deploy it in a way that we are able to, do what it was intended for, which is cover other post-employment benefits. So over the next year, I'm an optimist. So I think the market's going to do better than the actuary said it would. And I think we could get fully funded possibly next year, maybe the year after. But if it doesn't happen, when it happens, at least we have a policy, and it's up on the screen now, that would help us define when and how we fund it and when and how we draw from it, which is pretty straightforward.
Based on the age of the town employees, et cetera, is there a median cost per year?
Yeah, and the report, I have a copy of the report. If you want, you can borrow it. It's about 150 pages. It's all sorts of actuarial tables on how many employees. These guys have analyzed it to the person, but we basically have it projected out to 2052 as to what the exact costs are going to be based on their assumptions, which is, inflation is X, interest is Y, the cost of healthcare is Z. So of course it could all be, doo-doo, but they've done a good job at the best guess. And I think that, my attitude is you guys put in 3.7 million, including the interest we've earned on the money. And it's not, so once we're fully funded, we should use it for its intended purpose, but we shouldn't be imprudent because, obviously, we don't want to be hasty, but we're getting pretty close to the point where we can reduce it. And that 139,000 is basically 1.5% of folks' taxes. So it's, it's not a huge amount, but it's like, it's 1% here, 2% there, where it kind of ends up, that ends up being real money. So, you guys, so basically the point is on OPEB, I brought it up last meeting and we're recommending no action other than to, review with the finance committee, this sort of a plan.
Yes, whatever. It's just.
No action.
No action.
No action. Right. All right. Excellent.
Okay.
All right. So the next thing is the inclusionary development bylaw. We had referred that, the planning board approved and referred it back. I would like to make a motion, unless you want to talk about it, we can talk about it after the motion, to include the inclusionary development bylaw on the warrant. And just.
Did you want to hear from Donna
Yeah,
on
please,
that?
Donna.
I know you're waiting
for Donna on this.
Oh, no, I was waiting for on the 81, but yeah, Don, you want to address the changes we made to inclusionary development since they saw it last?
So a couple of things that we did. Good evening, everybody. We've added in here a way for the secondary market to retain the affordability of these units.
Can you just explain before, or I can, if you want, if you prefer, just give people a 10,000 foot view of what this bylaw does?
So the intent of the bylaw is to provide for some affordable housing to be created when there are projects that have at least 10 new residential units or rehabilitated residential units as part of their design. So the amount of affordable units that need to be created depends on the total number of units. And then the intent is that the units will not only be sold initially by the developer as affordable, but will continue to remain affordable such that we get them on our subsidized housing inventory where we want them to stay so that we can get up to our 10% minimum, which will help us if we ever get hostile 40B developments.
Right.
So we had some discussions about how to make sure on sale, initial sale and resale, we can keep them affordable. And so we have a section in here, 1.1.14, which now takes care of that. That's different from the original bylaw that was proposed. 1.1.13 actually is the initial sale. That one was a little easier to deal with. The other thing we did is we tried to, or we did add in a provision by which not only do they have to, does the developer have a choice? They can either pay money to be the equivalent of what an affordable unit would cost, or they can actually construct an affordable unit as part of their project. Or the third option we now give them is to create an affordable unit some other place in town. And there are provisions, guidelines for how all of that gets evaluated. I think those are the two big ones, Patrick.
Yeah, I do too. It's pretty straightforward. It's, it only applies to relatively large for Stockbridge developments. What was the percentage we said? You want to just go through the, if people were to pay, what the funding formula is?
Hold on, let me dig it out here because I certainly don't want to do that off the top of my head.
All right, it's in section 1 point. It's not running the chart. We basically did 5 times 80% of the AMI. So if, for example, if AMI were 80% AMI now is around what, 70 or 80 grand in for a family of 4 in Berkshire County? Yeah. So basically they would pay 5 times 80% of the AMI. So it's roughly a $400,000 payment every 10 units that go in. So if you're building 19 luxury condos or not luxury buildings, and it's $1.5 million or $2 million a building, the cash flow or the revenue, not cash flow, from those sales would be anywhere from 20 to 38 million, and they would put in 400,000. So it's not, if it's only 10 units, they might only put in 400,000 based on 20 million in sales, but it's really kind of targeted at, getting a little bit of a payment for a large revenue stream from luxury development. Yes, Karen Marshall.
Yes, Karen Marshall. My question is, if they pay the town in lieu of building, what happens to that fund?
Goes into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And then that could be used to repair pine woods, for example, where we've got an estimate that there's $3 to $5 million in work that needs to be done. We could go to expand, we could give a grant potentially to the Stockbridge Housing Authority where they've got a backup of about $500,000 in capital projects, or you could buy a rundown house that could be renovated by Habitat for Humanity, but that maybe needed a sewer hookup or something, or who knows, or, the price of the land. So, those are the sorts of things that it could go toward, and that would be a supermajority vote of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to deploy the resources. Anybody else on that one? Do you love it? Do you hate it? What are you thinking?
I'm okay with it.
All right. I make a motion that we include the residential inclusionary bylaw on the warrant.
Second.
All's in favor? See, I remember to do it.
Aye.
Aye. All right. All right. The last one we're going to deal with is the accessory dwelling unit bylaw. Donna, can you walk us through the changes from the original draft that was first posted and that we first referred in late February, early March?
Yes, that's about right. So there actually aren't that many of them. I think the big one that did the original draft had a lot of comment about was the issue about only being available to those whose primary residence or domicile was the property. And this removed the references to primary residence and domicile. It also removed the limitation. Well, what it did is it said that the units can be used as any rental, both short-term and long-term.
Can you put up the red line version? Don, wait 1 second. I'm going to have Michael put up the red line version.
Yep, sure.
If it's for me, I'm not here.
Where would you like?
Well, Donna, what section why don't we kind of coordinate? Where are you now?
So if you start with,
And zoom it a little.
go to 4.0.
Mm-hmm.
There really weren't any changes before then. And so if you go down to 4.0 2H,
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, that change didn't make it in there. Off-street parking spaces shall be available, not should.
Okay.
I've got it in my.
That wasn't the change.
That.
Look at it. If you want to do a summary walkthrough, we took out domicile at the request of some folks.
Yeah.
Why don't you do like a high level, what changes we made? And then if we want to get in the weeds on this, we can. As I understand it, basically you got to be in residence to a rental. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, you gotta
Be a full-time.
no, you just have to be, you have to occupy one unit to do a rental. And occupy is not mean necessarily that you're there every day. It simply means you can't rent both units. That's my big deal. You can't rent both units. That's the thing I care about. And then we left in the process of what happens upon sale, which is frankly a standard thing that is in almost every one of these that we've checked. And, you know.
Yeah, that didn't change. That was in the original. The thing I'd say that the thing I think that people are still concentrating on is that subsection I, which does say that if one of the units is being rented at the time of the rental, the other unit has to be owner occupied.
Right.
We do have a couple of hands up.
Yep, I know, we'll get to them. Now on that, can you just define for us, owner occupied? Obviously somebody is not like, cave dwelling in one of these units and they're seven days a week, 24 hours a day. People are coming and going. They may be coming and going for the weekend. Is the spirit of this law that owner occupied simply means that the owner isn't renting out the other unit? Or is it your feeling that the spirit of this law is that that you actually have to be physically present for some portion of the day if you have a rental going up?
So I really don't want to get into the spirit of the law. I think that's what you guys do.
All right.
I will tell you, if I am interpreting this, it's going to mean that while the unit is being rented, the owner is going to be using the other unit as their home. And anybody who's using their residence as their home, there are going to be times when they're on vacation, when they go visit family for weekends. So that's all consistent with being owner occupied, I think. What may not be consistent with owner occupied is moving to a different state or a different town for 5 or 6 months of the year.
And at that point, they would be able to rent it.
At that point, they would not, if this law remains unchanged.
Can we not do messaging, please, during the meeting? I will recognize everybody when it's appropriate, and I will not bar anyone from speaking, but I think it's really important that the folks pay attention to the conversation and then post their questions in verbally into the session. Donna, how hard would it be to make it so that a long-term rental, like a 12-month or more rental, that requirement that people be on site is waived.
Well, this is a zoning bylaw, so you're not going to be able to just waive it. That's not the way this bylaw is written. Unless we build that in, but I don't believe that we did.
All right.
What we allowed to be waived were dimensional modifications.
Right.
But not that requirement.
Okay. I do believe that one of the goals here, obviously, is to foster long-term rentals, because that's what creates housing stock. I mean, look, there's two things we're trying to do here. The first is we're trying to make it so if you want to buy a house, it's more affordable. And by the way, by that I mean, and criticize me if you like, I mean buy a house to live here full time. All right. The ADU makes it more affordable. So those types of rentals we envision are not limited, because somebody who can afford a $400,000 mortgage may need to have the ADU revenue stream with their right next door most of the year, making sure they're not some party house, that I like. I also like the idea if second homeowners want to build an ADU and rent it to like somebody who works at the Red Lion for a long-term rental. I like that too. The thing I don't like is the potential to have short-term rentals when people aren't here for months and months on end. And the other thing I don't like is for the potential to have two rentals on the property. I think that blows up the real estate market and actually makes less housing stock for working class retirees.
By law, you can't rent to two, you can rent to one.
That's right.
But how do you stop short-term rentals?
Well, what I'm asking is, can we allow long-term rentals for folks who are only here part of the year, but while they're not here, disallow short-term rentals? I guess that's my question.
How do you control that?
Yeah. It's most of it's an honor system, just the way it is right now. We've got a whole bunch of people who haven't registered in town. I mean, basically the bylaw, people want to be scofflaws they can be, but I mean, most people aren't. But if you want to address enforceability, you're welcome to, Michael.
Well, one of the things we know is through using that software we talked about would allow us to identify who's short-term rental. Therefore, if a property had both being rented, we were able to identify that and act upon. Yeah.
Do you want to exit this so we can see who wants to ask a question? All right.
Patty Kaya, Joseph Newberg, and Matthew and Catherine Chester.
I'd like to hear from Matt and Catherine Chester first.
Everyone, I think we wrote a letter in to fully support the bylaw. And, I think the main reason is as somebody who is a young family and talks to a lot of young families, I think this would help people stay in Stockbridge. We know a couple, at least one couple that, because of their rental unit, it allows them to continue to live in Stockbridge. But additionally, I think, we also know a lot of seniors, including, my in-laws, who, as they get older, it's going to be harder and harder for them to maintain their lifestyle here if they don't have a rental property. So I think it's a good idea for that. Subsequent to the letter, I did want to just confirm something. I don't know if this is something that somebody else may take issue with. So, but I just want to make sure that the way that it's crafted doesn't put someone who's currently renting their house and just has one unit in a different space than if you have two units. So by which I mean the hypothetical would be, I'm currently renting my house out, but then once I have an ADU, in order to rent the other unit, I have to be there. So it seems like, I think that seems maybe to be some of the concern potentially that you were raising, Patrick, is that it shouldn't put those two people in two different situations.
And Tim, Matt, I think that if they were both long-term rentals, I would have no problem with it. I tell the story, Cohn White, which is a local real estate agent, stopped by my house in 2019, knocked on the door and said, I can get Tanglewood to pay you $13,000 a month for this house if you want to rent it for 3 months. That's not a short-term rental. It's not legally considered a short-term rental because it's 30 days or longer. All right. Well, they came in, they saw the kitchen and said, okay, maybe 9,000, but that was a whole other issue. the fact of the matter is that I don't want, this is a weird town because the rentals in the summer, even a month to month, create a real distortion in the real estate market. And God love you if you're going to, rent your house out for the month, for the year, for the summer, whatever. I have a problem with having two revenue streams like that, because what it will do is it will create a whole lot of absentee investor pressure on the housing stock we do have. And I think that we've got to be really careful about creating these reverse incentives around these giant cash flows, around multiple rentals in that kind of scenario where someone's willing to pay $10,000 or $15,000 a month. Shelby and Karen pointed out to me the other day that a couple of years ago, Goodrich Street was almost entirely full-time residents. It's that street that runs parallel to Route 7 as you go south toward Barrington. It's like now half absentee owners who are renting them out on Airbnb. This is happening all over town. And I think we just have to be cognizant that what we're trying to do here is to encourage and make it easier for people to afford to live here, either as an owner of a property or have a place to rent here. But what we're really not looking to do is kind of further blow up the real estate market due to the market distortions that Tanglewood creates for us. And not against second homeowners, not against Tanglewood. I'm just saying we've got when Chuck and I were kids, we had 10 times as many kids in the fourth grade as we're going to have next year. And that's, if you don't think that's an issue, well, that's my issue. So I'm gonna recognize Patty now.
Thank you. Patty Kay, 8 Housatonic Road, Stockbridge. Can I ask just one question before I provide my comments? Is the purpose of this discussion of this bylaw, again, in order to modify it to a point where it would go on this year's town warrant? Is that the point of tonight's discussion?
We're going to decide what to do with it tonight, and that includes deciding whether to work on it some more or refer it to the town warrant, yes.
Okay, so my first comment is that it's obvious to me that while we've made some inroads into modifying the language that was particularly exclusionary in this.
Pardon me, I want to comment on that. It was modified in March, Patty, well after that April 7th letter you wrote to the Eagle.
It was not posted for public comment. It was bandied about over the weekend privately in email threads between you and various members of the public. So this is the first redlined public presentation of the modified language. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Don, is that true? You never posted the modified language? I thought that we posted that at the second planning board meeting.
I don't know. I haven't gone back. I don't remember off the top of my head.
All right, keep going, Patty.
It was still version 1. Happy to send you the paper trail. So several things still concern me. And one of them was a discussion tonight with town council. So the town council just specifically said that the way it's written, it would preclude part-time residents from renting the ADUs. And I don't think that we should be talking about spirit of the law. We should talk about laws that are written so that they can be adhered to.
Patty, okay, so let's deal with your points one at a time. I'm not interested in a short-term rental bylaw that allows, ADU bylaw that allows short-term rentals when the owner is absent. I am willing to consider an ADU bylaw that allows long-term rentals when the owner is absent. So if that's a compromise that you like, great. And if you don't like it, then that's going to be my position.
Can I ask, has the rest of the select board weighed in on this bylaw at all?
Do you have any more comments on the substance, and then we'll get to our process?
Actually, I do.
All right.
The bona fide temporary absence. What is the legal definition of bona fide temporary absence? By what criteria would be used to evaluate such an absence, and by whom? Would it be left up to the arbitrarily defined capriciousness of whoever's in the current select board when you go before the board for a special permit? Owner occupied does not currently appear in the town zoning bylaws. How will it be?
Okay, let's deal with the bona fide temporary absence. All right. The Medford bylaw, where you have your primary residence for 27 years, has included that exact phrase, including a process to legally attest when the property turns over or every 5 years that the owner of that property is an owner occupied property. Have you addressed this in your home community, Patty, which has had the exact same language in its ADU bylaw for the last 27 years? Because frankly, I didn't appreciate being called an abhorrent abuse of power. So we can have a reasonable discussion if you want, but I have a problem when second homeowners come into this meeting and create a sense of unfairness for the local people here, where in their home communities, they have the exact same language in their own bylaws. Next point, please.
Well, I think I obviously need to get back to that first point. So Patrick, a letter to the editor is a person's personal opinion.
All right, I've had enough. Joe, do you want to speak?
Right. Secondly, owner occupied. It doesn't currently appear in the town bylaws. So how will it be defined and where?
It appears in the Medford bylaws where you live.
I don't live in Medford. I'm living in Stockbridge when this bylaw goes into effect.
You live in Medford, Patty, which is fine. And there's about 100 other towns. And Donna and I went through dozens of bylaws that have similar language here. This is how they all work.
But you haven't written it into this town's bylaw.
Yeah,
you haven't
exactly.
done the homework.
Oh, that is ridiculous. Anyway, Joe, what do you have to say?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry that this is disintegrating into another cutting people off kind of situation on one side or the other. And as you said, Patrick, you don't want to be unfair, but you publicly said that you do not want to be fair. Those were you said the purpose of this bylaw is not to be fair. Those were the exact. Now, listen, Patrick, do not cut me off, please. I consider that to be just bad process. You know, you plight on everything and everything can get done and people can get heard and then you can do what you want to do. The big problem with the bylaw as presently written, which is an advance over how it was originally proposed, and this is indeed the first time the public really has a look at what is being proposed for adoption tonight. And it wasn't available to look at before the planning board. It is the definition and the use of the words owner occupied. And as council has confirmed again tonight, as she did at the planning board hearing, this is designed to limit what second homeowners can do. That's its purpose. It's designed to do that. It is contrary to the stated purposes of the bylaw to encourage more housing and more affordability in one thing or another. Now, your position, which is new tonight, but is appreciated, is that second homeowners could not do short-term rentals because they won't be consistently in occupancy as council has defined it and as it's presently written, but could do long-term rentals. And, as long as they're willing to certify that they will owner occupy the property, which means it's more than 6 months residence, apparently, which means they can't do it. And if they could do it and then they try to sell the property, they can't do it. And incidentally, the fatal flaw in this thing is if a current full-time resident gets an ADU, properly, does the certifications as a full-time resident, wants to sell their property, it's my understanding that the large majority of the market for homes in Stockbridge is to people who would be second homeowners. And so if a second homeowner couldn't utilize the ADU because they couldn't validly give the certifications of owner occupancy, then why would they pay any value for the ADU? Why would a bank finance a property that has to be sold at the end to pay off the mortgage if this can't happen? This is not well thought out.
That's okay.
It just isn't right. Now, let me make one final proposal because I think it's moving, it got better, so maybe it'll get better still. Think it out, but consider regulating what you don't like about short-term rentals in the town. Now, I don't know what that would be. That's a whole hot topic, obviously. But then let everybody do whatever kind of rental they want because you're getting the kinds of short-term rentals and you're getting the enforcement that you want about them, no matter who owns it. And you're not gumming up transfer of property. You're not making what you think is a valuable addition for full-time residents that turns out to be not so valuable after all because they can't sell their property and get the value out of what they paid for. And incidentally, if it is a value to them, but not to second homeowners, won't that increase the value, the relative values of the local full-time residents and cause them to pay a larger share of the property tax bill in town, which is something that some people have thought was not a great idea in the first place. So I just think it through a little more, push it a little more. Don't leave these definitions in that are really impossible for second homeowners to work with, because that's...
Joe, the purpose of the bylaw is to do two things, is encourage young folks to be able to live here. So if they can only afford a $400,000 mortgage and the house average price here is $600,000, that maybe that rental, whether it's a short-term rental or otherwise, helps them afford to live here. The other purpose of this bylaw is that if an elderly person who lives here needs a caregiver to live in their house, that they would have a place for that caregiver to stay that allows them to stay in their home. It is not to lower people's taxes or to create extra revenue streams for anyone. You're right, it's a strange town. And it's strange because you're right, we've got a whole lot of different kind of homeowners that most towns don't have. Having said that, though, I will simply point out that nearly all of the accessory dwelling unit bylaws in the eastern part of the state, Hamilton, Medford, everyone we looked at, everyone Don and I looked at, have an attestation that requires the owner to occupy one of the two units. And they do that so that the types of folks that are neither of us, the absentee investors, can't swoop in and get those properties and rent them out two at a time. All right. I don't know if there's
those are not towns.
I'm not done yet.
Those are not towns that are primarily made up of second homeowners, Patrick.
And if you think that, if you think I have any interest in honestly, folks, if you think the job of a select board is to manage a town as we transfer to entirely second homeowners, then vote for someone else, because that is not a job I have any interest in doing. All right, this is a job, this is a challenge for residential ownership, for young people to be able to afford here, and for elderly people to be able to stay in their homes. And the rest of it is I'm trying to accommodate you guys as much as I can without blowing up the housing market and making it even less likely that those people will be able to afford here. Do you guys, now look at, obviously there's some challenges to this right now. If you want to pull this and study it some more, I'm totally fine with it. But, you know, but this issue, we're trying to do a really simple thing for some young people and some old people in town. And once again, mired in this sort of the rights of the aggrieved, I don't understand it, you know? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Just define owner occupied a little better. You know, so it doesn't preclude the second homeowners from participating even in long-term rentals. You know, don't pretend that it allows them when it doesn't.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks.
So Joseph just actually a few minutes ago said something that supports my argument, which is that the market is pushing home sales toward second homeowners.
Right.
And second homeowners think that's a dandy, but full-time homeowners do not. And the fact that the market's doing that is itself unfair to people who want to live here full-time. We moved out here from Brighton, from a neighborhood that was right next to Boston College. And in the course of the first part of this century, with maybe one or two exceptions, every house in our neighborhood that came up for sale was bought by an investor who turned it into a student house. The neighborhood went to hell. Okay. It was great for them. It was not good for the neighborhood. So we who live here need to protect the town from becoming another promise town. And that's not about being unfair to second homeowners. That's about being fair to full-time residents. That's about giving full-time residents a chance to actually be full-time residents. So to me, not allowing second homeowners to have ADUs is critical. And I'd rather even not allow short-term rentals, but somebody living in the house needs to make some money. If that's the only way they can do it, so be it. But I'd rather have the people who are renting have long-term rentals themselves so that they also are residents. But bottom line, we need to protect residents and allow residents to be residents, period.
Matt, did you want to say something?
I did. I just wanted to say, Patrick, and I think others know, we've been very much in support of ADUs all along. It's something I've brought up for probably over a year or more. But I think that what we always find is that the short-term rental issue gets conflated with the ADU issue. And I think that what I'm, and Catherine's here too, but I think we can't try to regulate short-term rentals through the ADU bylaw. And so in a way, I agree with what Joe and Patty are saying is if short-term rentals are what people are concerned about, which it ruins the market, and we're concerned that it pushes prices up, that's one issue. But if we're trying to create an ADU bylaw, that's a separate issue. So we shouldn't try to do one through the other. Because what I was trying to say earlier, probably ineloquently, is that right now anyone can rent their house short-term, whether I'm a second homeowner or I'm not. It shouldn't be the case that suddenly I have an ADU. If I want to rent one of the two, I have to be there in order to do that. Because it actually works against the goal, which is to have more ADUs that we can rent. Now, I understand the concern of not renting two, but I think we can say you can't rent two without sort of putting trying to regulate short-term rentals through this bylaw by saying somebody has to be there as soon as you have an ADU.
Donna, do you have any insight into, are there other approaches we could take to try to, you've heard kind of, I think, what some of our goals are here, and is there a way for us to revisit the short-term rental bylaw along with the ADU bylaw as one package over the next year, that would kind of smooth out what some of these issues are?
Could I make a comment?
I'm sorry. Is your hand up? But I didn't see it if it was. Sure, of course.
It's, sorry.
Just give us your name. I can't read the screen.
It's Paul Sundberg, Averitt Road, Interlaken. All I wanted to say, very quick comment. 2/3 of the people in our neighborhood are second homeowners. As far as I know, none of them rent their houses out. They're just here to enjoy Stockbridge. Mm-hmm. I think, probably the number of people we're talking about that are causing problems is relatively small. And I just want to make sure that the term second homeowners does not get used as a denigration of our friendly neighbors.
No, and in fact, my concern has nothing to do with second homeowners. My concern has to do with investor buyers of the properties. I have no problem with second homeowners having an ADU or not, frankly. I just don't know how to differentiate them from the folks who would buy a unit that has two rentals on it and attempt to rent them out, or, it's the owner investors that really worry me.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I would totally agree, yes. And I think we do have one of those in our neighborhood, actually.
Yeah.
No names mentioned.
Donna, what do you think? I'm thinking maybe this needs a little further study. What do you think? It
needs a lot of further study. And
I think we need a pause.
I would remove it from the agenda because it's going to take 4 nights to get this done. And take these concerns and try to get something that would work. But
yeah. Just notice that
as of right now, this is not going to work.
And yet,
I know what you're trying to do. I'm 100% behind that part. But even like what the guy says, morning, 5 did it a year and a half, and only had 5.
Yeah.
So
that's 5 families. That's 10 kids. That's 10% of the kids in our schools.
Out of Lee and Lennox, when this came in for a year and a half into the works, only 5 ADUs been permitted.
No, it's in the last year and a half. You said the first one, there were more, but still.
So I think we just got to work on this a lot more. We got to have time to adjust it.
I will just point out, though, that this is exactly why we're not making changes that protect the character of our communities. And I'm happy to table this. In fact, I'll make a motion to table right now. But this is what you're witnessing right now, exactly why not a single thing is getting done to fix Goodrich Street or Park Street or Church Street or the streets where the residents live. And I guarantee you.
What do you mean?
That the trend, Chuck, since we were a kid, there were 40 kids in the fourth grade when we were kids. There's 3 now.
That's not just here, that's everywhere. It's not just, our issue isn't just housing.
Yes, it is not just here. The ratio of people living to people having kids, people dying to people having kids in the United States is 1.05. All right. So in other words, there's a couple more kids than there are old people. All right. Born each year versus die each year. In Stockbridge, that ratio is 2.7. 2.7 more people die each year in Stockbridge than have kids in Stockbridge. Okay. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I am just simply pointing out that we either have some kind of process to figure out some of these intractable issues, or we don't. Because believe me, I hate getting yelled at, and I understand where folks are coming from, and I get that. Yeah, I get it, and I hate conflict, but we got a job to do here, folks, and our job is to figure out if we're going to still have a town here in 5 or 10 or 20 years. It's our job. So anyway, I make a motion table.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. We have made you wait for so long. Are there any public comments that folks from Stockbridge first off want to make in the public comment period?
I have one.
Do you want to, actually, do we have anything on the warrant we need to still do?
No, that was.
No, okay, good.
So we gotta make a
Yes,
motion.
public comments.
Oh, yeah.
We need to make a motion to approve the warrant.
No, because we're not.
Well, we're done with it.
Hold on 1 second.
Hang on.
If you're good.
Wait.
We'll go with the warrant.
If you're good with the warrant, with the changes that you've identified.
And you don't think that the finance committee might have thoughts on anything that they're meeting?
No, they're either going to recommend now or.
Okay, so yes, I make a motion, we approve the warrant.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'm going to recognize, can people raise their hands if they want to speak?
I'm a digital moron.
All right, Denny, will you go first?
Sure. Stand over there?
Yeah, sure.
I think that, I've been involved with the river a lot and talked recently at the Conservation Commission. And we've spent, Mike, since 2013, we've spent.
We've appropriated 180,000.
Yeah.
We spent all but 30,000 of it.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that there's a lot of confusion in town as to what it's about, what's happening. So here's a request to the board. I would like to ask the select board if they would vote to have the meetings with the rest of the river representative in public session rather than in executive session.
Well, there are no more meetings. It's all in court, isn't it? It's all tied up in legal.
There was a meeting this morning.
You have meetings?
There are, the rest of the river committee does meet.
All right, it's on the agenda, so we can't vote tonight, Denny. But your request basically is to try to ensure that there is a public session that is at least associated with every executive session. There's 6 rules of why things have to go in executive session with select boards in Massachusetts. I'm not suggesting that those be used to hide or otherwise disguise any things that are going on. Are you suggesting that we have a public session that corresponds with any executive session we have? Because I will remind you that I did do that for the last meeting, the one where Steve came in and spoke to us. We had a public session initially that was on the agenda before we went into executive session to talk about the litigation.
Well, I don't believe that Stockbridge is in litigation at this point. I may be wrong about that. And if we're not in litigation, then really is going into executive session actually what we want to be doing.
Right. So you're talking about the briefing that we get from the rest of river representative to the board. Obviously, the rest of river is in litigation.
Yes.
Okay. And I think
part of that.
I think we have both.
Oh, isn't that because of the intermunicipal?
All right, we're not going to resolve this now, but I understand the nature of the request, and I think it's, personally, I like transparency, but, there's some things that are going to have to be in executive session, but I will endeavor to make sure that whenever information can be public, it is.
Thank you.
Josh, you've been waiting all day. You come up and introduce yourself. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee and town.
Can you just give your name?
My name is Joshua Bloom. I live at 204 West Park Street in Lee. I appreciate the opportunity to just talk with you. And I also want to first address the chairman to say there was a misunderstanding on social media that there was not, that the town of Lee was not informed about an offer that you made to the town of Lee, and that we were left in the dark about that. And that was not on you, that is on our town, and the misunderstanding between us, I apologize.
I don't understand. What offer?
The offer was that if the town of Lee, and Michael and I talked about this, a month and a half ago, if the town of Lee made a formal request to meet with us jointly, that we would consider that request.
And the town of Lee has not made that.
It hasn't, we haven't ever received it.
The chairman of the board sets the agenda. I got a call from the town administrator from Lee asking to be, if they'd be placed on the agenda. Patrick, as the chairman, gets to decide.
Well, we declined. We
declined and asked that a formal, if they so wish, to send a formal invitation as well.
If the select board requested it, we would consider it.
As chairman, you set the agenda, so it's Patrick's.
Based on the information that the select board has publicly stated just in the last few minutes, there's some inaccuracies. So I would like to just backtrack and explain what has happened since January. Here is what the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission and the Housatonic Rest of the River Committee, which embodies the towns of Sheffield, Great Barrington, Stockbridge, Lennox, and Lee in opposition, secretly planned to vote on 3/27/23. They secretly plan to proactively opt to participate in oral arguments against the Housatonic River Initiative and the Housatonic Environmental Action League in the First Circuit Court of Appeals case against General Electric and the EPA. General Electric being the worst polluter in Berkshire County and the polluter of the Housatonic River. What was at issue are the plans for creating the Berkshire Touch, the dump on the border between Lee and Lennox, just over a mile and a half away from where I see a young family there sends their children to school at the Montessori School of the Berkshires. The Montessori School of the Berkshires will be in a cancer cluster zone, as will be the Lennox Middle and High School. The town of Stockbridge will experience tens of thousands of trucks passing through its streets every year for up to the next 15 years. And I'm not sure if the public is aware of that. I'm not sure if the public is aware that the Stockbridge representative, Steve Schatz, was in executive session. He represented the town by admonishing the rest of the committee members that they were forbidden from disclosing that they intended to launch this aggressive legal action, that the towns did not need to participate in. The rest of the river committee and the town of Stockbridge is not party to any lawsuits right now. They opted into this lawsuit. They didn't opt into doing an amicus brief. They opted into spend $15,000 to enter into oral arguments to undermine our environmental organizations of the Berkshires and to support the polluter, the biggest polluter in our community. And that does not represent your town's values. It doesn't represent my values. It is Steve Schatz who, in today's meeting of the Rest of the River Committee, which was meeting to discuss my open meeting law complaint about the fact that they hid that agenda item, about what they were voting on, after consulting with counsel about how to frame the verbiage of that agenda item as a vote on expenditure of funds. The response from counsel from the Rest of the River Committee that they presented this morning and I'll just stop for a second to say, because they refused to release the video of the last meeting, it took 6 requests from me. It took 1 request from public television and it took 1 request from the media over the course of 2 weeks before they released that video. Because they did not want to have the public see what was happening in today's meeting, they refused to have the meeting recorded on Zoom, even after being asked. The town of Stockbridge they refused to put on the meeting agenda public comments. They put on the last meeting agenda when they didn't disclose to the public what they would be discussing. They put public comments before, and only after did they reveal that they were going to be pursuing this aggressive legal strategy they didn't allow the public to have comments. Again, at today's meeting, there was 0 public comments allowed. The town of Lee's representative got before the board and said, I would like us to hear I would like the public to be able to be heard at this meeting. I can tell you who was silent. Every other town representative, including Steve Schatz, who refused to allow the public to speak. He then proceeded to ask the moderator to silence the people in the meeting who were not on the board, so they could not be heard. He asked them to be muted. Is this how you want your town to be represented? The town of Lee, in this past year, recognized the faults of the rest of the river process. We have chosen to appoint, the select board has chosen to appoint a pro-environmentalist, pro-public health, pro-public input representative. You as a board, the biggest thing that you can do to protect the environment of the Berkshires is to replace Steve Schatz. And that is what I'm going to ask you to consider.
Okay. Thank you. Just a couple of notes. I've spent 3 years recruiting people to serve on our boards. Steve Schatz has served on our board for 10 years. Do I always agree with Steve on every issue? No, I don't think that anybody in this town ever agrees with anyone on every issue. I will say this, though, that you're on precarious ground with me when you come in and attack one of our volunteers serving on one of our boards, because there's always a chance that it's hard enough to find people to do it. And I feel like that in good faith, Steve has tried for 10 years to negotiate the best that I could get. It may be a lousy deal. I'm not an expert at this. I have no idea. I will make a substantive question, though, and this is a question I would have to you. I would appreciate it if you would get me, as a follow-up, information on the amount of trucks of PCB-laden PCBs that were going through Main Street on Route 7 through town. Okay, and that's how I'm going to leave it. If you guys have any other comments for that.
Just quickly answer that.
No, actually, I just want you to get me that
back. I have it for the Board of Health. I'll email it to you tomorrow.
Thanks. Is there anybody else who wants to speak on this topic?
I have a question.
Yeah, actually, I'm here because Jack Conquest, I am a Stockbridge resident. My wife is a lifelong resident. She grew up in the caretaker's house right there on the cemetery. So she is a 2-time cancer survivor, along with many other surgeries related to that over the period of 15 years. I'm glad she's still here with me. But recognizing that PCB-laden trucks with, everybody knows what dirt does when it's dry. It blows around. There's plenty, I've got kids next door to me. There's kids all up and down my neighborhood. I've watched Park Street grow back a whole plethora of children. It's wonderful to see. How many of them are going to end up with cancer? How many of us walking around town in our quaint little town that we want to keep full-time homeowners? We want to see this town. Patrick, you're doing a lot of work, and I commend you for trying to keep the town that way. I like it. But when we watch truck after truck after truck happen in our town, why do people want to start coming here? What's there to see? You know, lots of dirt. Even the tourists are going to find out, wait a minute, I've got cancer because I went to Main Street. Now, it goes beyond that. The dredging of the river. I'm a fly fisherman. That's my main place. 2 of my friends make their living on that river. And you start dredging that river and destroying that river, we use it from Pittsfield all the way to Ashley Falls and into Connecticut. It's going to destroy the river from its beginning to its end. for the foreseeable life that I could have. For what? It's not, none of this is hurting people now. But we're going to change that by dredging it.
Well, you can't claim it's not hurting people now.
I'm sorry?
You can't claim that. Anytime it rained, anytime the bank moves, PCB gets disturbed, it gets moved. It's a toxic up now. So you just can't say that. And I agree with you on some things, but you can't say that it's not hurting anybody.
Well, then anytime we look at, look, I'm an international airline pilot. When we look at risk, we look at where risk of human life is greater or less. Obviously, I work in a very risky job. When we look at dredging miles of a river, clearly we're disturbing much more bank than,
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying all this has been hashed out through all these committees and everything.
Well, I need to start looking at not being a longtime resident anymore because I fear for my health.
I would just go back to, I want more information on the actual volume of trucks.
Can I speak? Because I don't know how to raise my hand.
No, actually, I'm going to adjourn the meeting, John. Unless there's I think that the main points are made and it's getting late.
I just have a comment.
All in favor?
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
John was trying to speak earlier, so.
Am I allowed to? I commend Steve Stapp for the hard work that he has put in.
John, we can follow up on this